From chest-bursting aliens to eye-popping vacations on Mars, science fiction has always been a genre warning us of the dangers of the future. Like, what if we could predict crime, take political correctness too far, or bang an alien? In this video, we'll be taking a chronological look at some of the greatest sci-fi films of all time. How well do you think they accurately predict the future? And word of warning, I'm only choosing films that have verified dates and take place in the future from when the film was made. So I'm sorry, Star Wars, you just don't make the cut. Starting off with a director who has 4 entries in the timeline is James Cameron's The Abyss, one of a few on this list that doesn't take place in space or some sort of dystopian future. Although theatrically released in 1989, the film is set 5 years in the future when an experimental drilling platform on the bottom of the ocean has an unexpected run-in with underwater aliens. Although one of Cameron's least successful films, it did end up grossing $90 million of its $45 million budget and was one of the first films to implement photorealistic fluid morphing using CGI. 3 years later, and the world isn't looking too great. Well, New York at least, which has turned the whole island of Manhattan into a maximum security prison. It's directed by John Carpenter and stars Kurt Russell as legendary Snake Plissken, a man who must infiltrate the criminal-infested island to save the president or else his arteries will explode. Escape from New York may not be the greatest representation of New York in 1997. Well, okay, maybe it was, but it's gone on to be a cult classic. Arguably one of the most groundbreaking and critically acclaimed films on the timeline is Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film, you guessed it, set in 2001 but made in 1968. Its groundbreaking practical effects would go on to be used by directors like Christopher Nolan in Inception, and the iconic computer AI known as HAL still makes me freak out anytime I see electronics with a red light on them. Although it may not be the best representation of what space travel would be like in 2001, heck, we haven't even landed on the moon since 1972, 2001 paved the way for how future science fiction films would be created. Fast forward to 2015 and Detroit's on the verge of collapse due to financial mismanagement and a high crime rate, so basically ROBOCOP was bang on.
Your move, creep.
It makes us question the roles corporations have on our safety and what really makes us human, as ROBOCOP struggles with the memories of his past, which were supposed to be erased. If you like action with a sci-fi twist, definitely check this one out. In the same year, but completely different, is Back to the Future 2, a film made in 1989 but depicting 2015. Plus, there's no weird your mom trying to bang you stuff. Robert Zemeckis' second installment of the franchise sees Marty McFly having to travel not only into the past, but into the future. Fun fact, actor Crispin Glover, who played Marty's dad in the original movie, was replaced by an actor with prosthetics including a fake chin, nose, and cheekbones to resemble Glover after the actor refused to come back. Regardless, the film ended up being the highest grossing film of 1989. One of my favorites on this list is 1987's The Running Man. Set in 2017, it sees a popular game show host torment Arnold Schwarzenegger as America falls into ruin. So basically, it's spot on. The Running Man is one of those truly unique films portraying a world hell-bent on punishing those accused of crimes in a system that's secretly rigged against those who play it. It's really kind of interesting to see how much of the themes of societal and criminal injustice hold up to today, and if you haven't checked out this one, it's worth it just for Dynamo. One of 2 Ridley Scott films on this list is 1982's Blade Runner, depicting a 2019 Los Angeles. Although visually stunning, it's far from the LA of today, but enough can't be said how this film inspired future generations of sci-fi filmmakers. Blade Runner follows Rick Deckard, a man in charge of tracking down bioengineered humanoids known as replicants. It's one of those films that makes us really question what it means to be human. And if you want to know the answer to that, like and subscribe, answer at 1 million subs. Next up is Edge of Tomorrow, set right now in 2020. And who could have predicted this world where alien creatures known as mimics threaten humanity's very existence could be slightly better than the 2020 we're living now. Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt star in this Groundhog Day-esque actioner where Cruise's William Cage must relive the same battle over and over again. The special effects are superb here, with them realistically making Tom Cruise taller than Emily Blunt, so good on the VFX team for that. Now we're heading into the future, and a very grim one at that, with Alfonso Cuarón's House, Children of Men. Set in 2027, after 18 years of total human infertility and global depression, humanity faces extinction. Clive Owen plays Theo Farron, a former activist turned bureaucrat who teams up with a militant immigrants' rights group protecting the planet's only known pregnant woman. If you're looking for a movie to brighten your day in these trying times, yeah, this probably isn't the one for you, but it's absolutely brilliant and worth the watch. Another one of my favorites on the list, the original Terminator. Although the majority of the film takes place in the 80s, the future it depicts is the year 2029, in which the last of humanity fights against the machines. A cyborg assassin is sent back in time to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor, the woman who will one day give birth to a son who will lead humanity to victory. I mean, I wish I could go back in time just to watch this movie for the first time again. If you haven't seen it, just turn off this video and watch it ASAP. Up next is Bong Joon-ho's post-apocalyptic train adventure, Snowpiercer. Based off the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage, I just love saying that, Snowpiercer sees a world where man's attempt to stop global warming completely backfires, resulting in a new ice age. The remnants of humanity take to the Snowpiercer, a train that circumnavigates the globe and slowly becomes segregated, with the rich living an extravagant life in the front and the poor a life of squalor in the back. It's a totally weird and unique movie, plus Captain America's in it, so you should give it a watch. If you're wanting a completely over-the-top look at future California, look no further than the megalopolis known as San Angeles in 1993's Demolition Man. It sees a perfect utopian California where there's almost no crime, but it's terribly oppressive as almost everything fun like swearing has been declared illegal.
Thanks a lot, you shit.
It's just a totally fun cat and mouse game where Sylvester Stallone has to track down Wesley Snipes for his taxes, and is one of the few films on this list that has a different take on the future, one in which we go too far politically correct. Heading down the line to 2035 is Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys, yet another film about a virus almost wiping out humanity, in which Bruce Willis's character must travel to 1996 to stop it from ever being released. It was written by the same writing duo as Blade Runner, based off the short film La Jetée, which I had to watch 100 times in film school. It has a star-studded cast with Willis and Brad Pitt, but surprisingly not a lot of monkeys. The Wachowskis' second writing credit after the Matrix trilogy is another dystopian future set in Britain. What is with these writers always choosing Britain? Anyway, V for Vendetta depicts the exploits of Elrond, the masked vigilante known as V, take on an authoritarian regime. 6 weeks into filming, V, who was originally played by James Purefoy, left the production and was later replaced by Hugo Weaving, who redubbed his voice. If you want great action and a compelling story, definitely check this one out. Rian Johnson's Looper, yeah, I know some of you have a hate on for Mr. Johnson, is another one of those must-see sci-fi time travel films. And if you would have told me Joseph Gordon-Levitt could pull off a young Bruce Willis, I'd have told you you're a filthy liar. But it actually kind of works. The story here is really interesting, seeing bounty hunters called loopers who are hired to terminate victims sent back through time by crime syndicates. Based on the wildly popular sci-fi novel of the same name, Ready Player One is set in the year 2045, where people seek escape from reality through a virtual reality universe called Oasis. This is the first of 3 Steven Spielberg films on this list, who is no stranger to sci-fi. Although not a huge critical success, the film ended up grossing close to $600 million. 2 years later, we have Event Horizon, which sees Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne on a rescue mission to a missing ship that spontaneously appears around Neptune. Of course, things don't go according to plan, as it's discovered the ship is under the control of a malevolent entity. Gotta hate it when that happens. Speaking of things not going well, we have Minority Report, where Tom Cruise must evade authorities as he's deemed guilty of a crime he's yet to commit. The film delves into the classic philosophical debate of free will versus determinism. Are we bound by fate, or do we really make our own choices? Believe it or not, this was supposed to be a sequel to the original Total Recall. Don't ask me how that works, I just thought that was pretty cool. 3 years later, the sun is dying and Earth is freezing. In Danny Boyle's Sunshine, 8 astronauts are tasked with jump-starting the sun, but as you can imagine, it's about as easy as it sounds. Things go terribly wrong. This Cillian Murphy guy can't catch a break in his movies. He also starred in Boyle's 28 Days Later. Let's jump 10 years to 2067 and another film about a group of astronauts tasked with saving the planet. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar is an epic journey through space and time, starring Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and a 15-year-old Timothée Chalamet. Made with an estimated budget of $165 million, Interstellar Interstellar killed it at the box office, earning almost $700 million. Another one of my favorites on the list, the original Total Recall. Originally written by the same screenwriters as Alien, this screenplay set in the year 2084 went through almost that many drafts before it was actually greenlit. Not really, it was closer to 42, but still. Patrick Swayze was originally considered for the main role, but when Dino De Laurentiis' other film Dune flopped at the box office, he released the rights to the script, where Schwarzenegger picked it up and loved it, teaming up with Paul Verhoeven, the director of ROBOCOP, which Schwarzenegger was also supposed to star in. Continuing deeper into the future is another Spielberg entry, AI, starring Haley Joel Osment, a realistic AI child capable of simulating love. For years, this project was developed by Stanley Kubrick, but lingered in development hell, partly because the technology at the time was unable to properly convey Kubrick's vision. After his death in 1999, the script was given to Spielberg, and the rest is history. 21 years later, the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo brings on board an alien creature in one of this timeline's most terrifying films. Believe it or not, actress Sigourney Weaver was the last one to be cast, with her doing screen tests in the studio as the sets were being built. The film was a huge success, making roughly 20 times its budget back. More than 30 years later, we're introduced to the Na'vi. 2154 sees James Cameron explore the world of Pandora, and up until recently, it was the highest grossing film of all time. With 2 sequels on the way and heavy investment from Disney, only time will tell if Cameron's epic trilogy will live up to its blockbuster hit original. And if there's one filmmaker up to the task of making a sequel to Alien, guess who it is again? None other than James Cameron. The 1986 follow-up is set 57 years after the events of the first film, picking up right where protagonist Ripley left off in cryosleep. Whereas the original was more horror-inspired, Aliens leans to action, and to this day, a huge debate rages which film is superior. Let me know which film you think is better in the comments below. One of the most groundbreaking films on this list is 1999's The Matrix. Although you'd think the film takes place in the present, that's all a facade. The real world is run by machines who harvest humans for energy in the year 2199. The movie was so successful it spawned 2 sequels, with a 4th scheduled to release in 2021, and Keanu Reeves will reprise his role as Neo. As if things couldn't get worse, 1997's Starship Troopers sees humanity at war against an interstellar insectoid species known as arachnids. Director Paul Verhoeven in the DVD commentary said that the film's message is that war makes fascists of us all, hence the allusions to Nazis throughout. But he caught flack for his comments on American imperialism, saying that the SS imagery and propaganda is the natural evolution of the United States. The next film has a special place in my heart, so get out your multi-passes because it's The Fifth Element. Set in the year 2263, this is yet another film tasking Bruce Willis with saving the Earth, and damn is it fun. It's a film that doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, come on, it has Gary Oldman playing an over-the-top villain, and it has one of the most futuristic depictions of Earth we've seen yet. Up next, the original Star Trek the Motion Picture in the year 2273. The film pits Admiral James T. Kirk and the crew of the newly refitted Starship Enterprise against a powerful alien cloud. On its release, it smashed the record for highest opening weekend gross, beating the original Superman's opening of $10.4 million. A year later, we have Logan's Run. Along with starring Basil from the Austin Powers franchise, it's just got a really cool premise where the last of humanity lives in this giant dome run by a computer, but are killed off in an event known as the Carousel once they reach the age of 30 to prevent overpopulation. If you want some old school sci-fi, check this one out. And last but certainly not least is Planet of the Apes. Now, I said I'd only choose films with actual dates, but I just had to add this one to the list, if not for Charlton Heston.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
It sees an Earth so far in the future that apes have taken over. This movie spawned like a million terrible sequels, and let's not forget that fantastic musical sequence from The Simpsons.
Dr. Zayas, Dr. Zayas. Dr. Zayas, Dr. Zayas.
That's it for this timeline of sci-fi films. Leave a comment below on what your favorites are on this list, or if I left yours out. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.